All right, thank you guys for coming. Just out of curiosity, who has seen any of my talks before? Awesome, okay. I have actually not done the West Coast PB yet, so they've hidden me for some reason in Orlando and Chicago for the last few years. So I think 2017 was my first year. Man, I'm old. So like Jamie said, my specialty is men's health. So that's what we're going to get into today. I'm going to walk you guys through what we do at my company, Silverback Coaching, and then get into everything testosterone. So I realized that in Orlando, the training stuff was cool, but the testosterone stuff was cooler. So all the slides that you see in the book have nothing really to do with what I'm talking about today, mostly because Chris asks for them a few weeks ahead and we all change our shit. So if you haven't noticed that already. So with men are people too, even though they seem like their own species, and we may not necessarily understand you guys as females all the time because this is how you shower. So, there's some accuracies that you'll see today. But with the current state of men's health, it's not good. And there is an epidemic of low testosterone nowadays, and it's very similar to being the pandemic. So it is a problem where sperm production has decreased about 60%. And I don't know if you guys have heard this statistic or heard of Dr. Shanna Swan. She was on Joe Rogan. She talks about the epidemic of sperm production and the fertility issues, how it used to be many women who had issues, but pretty much anybody in this room probably knows somebody who has gone through IVF in some variable and have had to deal with fertility issues. A lot of that can be due to the epidemic of low T and sperm production, which has to do with environmental stuff, and there's a whole slew of reasons. That is a whole presentation in and of itself. Testosterone has declined 1% per year for the last 40 years, which is a significant amount. So our fathers and grandfathers lived at the testosterone levels that are now considered on the high end. And it does affect younger guys. So the younger guys, ages 15, 39, pretty much 20% of them are deficient. So I see guys more and more now who are in their 20s and their labs look like they are 80 years old. And obviously we don't want younger boys to be living suboptimally with testosterone levels. We want them to live as they should as men. But that's also its own issue with the toxic masculinity bullshit that we see mostly, I think, on social media. But I feel a lot of men are confused with this movement. And I've asked some of my colleagues, does this create challenges for how you communicate to women sometimes? Are you afraid to compliment us or say certain things just because now you could be labeled as something different? And that subconsciously can bring down testosterone levels. And heart disease is the #1 killer of men, and that directly correlates with erection strength. So erectile dysfunction, the stat is up there, 2025 is not far away. A lot of men of all ages are dealing with some sort of erectile dysfunction. I talk to guys on a daily basis, no matter how old they are. In my DMs, mostly struggling with ED issues. There is a whole multifactorial reason. It's not just hormonal. It can be stress. It can be medication-induced. It can be a number of things. But it is a problem, and a lot of guys have performance issues, performance anxiety, and things of that nature that they're dealing with that obviously we don't want guys to be dealing with. And 27% of men don't have close friends, and 47%, they don't speak openly with friends on their struggles. Men are taught to internalize things. It's a pride thing. So even if they think they might be dealing with low testosterone, it's not something that they're going to talk about socially or in the locker room. Women are more conditioned to be social about that stuff. We talk about menopause and all that stuff. No one talks about male menopause, which is known as andropause. Men go through that as well. As we saw, T levels decline 1% per year. So they're dropping significantly, but guys don't talk about what happens. The brain fog that happens, the lack of motivation, the lack of drive. Like testosterone is the winning hormone. It is what makes men men. And when that starts to drop, men feel that in many different areas. So that is significant when we think of how men operate as a whole. Think of how women feel when they go through menopause and their hormones drop. It's very similar with guys, but it's happening at younger and younger ages. And that's why having the conversation with your male clients about this stuff is crucial, because you have to get them to open up. They're not going to offer this information very forwardly like most women would. So it's kind of like dating when you're with a new client. And I usually say this is Charlie's baby picture, but he's not in here. So Charlie's my husband, if you guys don't know. And he loves my crass attitude and personality. But basically, what are the guys' self-limiting beliefs? So if we have clients who walk in the gym and they think, I can't do squats because I have bad knees. What do we want to say? Well, okay, there's no bad squats, there's bad squatters, blah, blah, blah. No matter what we say, in their mind, they think they can't do squats. So if we throw them under a bar, subconsciously, that's going to create a stressful environment, and they're more potentially going to get injured because they think they can't do something. This very much crosses over into every aspect of a man's life, whether it's business, professional, everything. So finding out what drives them. I ask our clients on our intake form, what are your biggest accomplishments in your life? What drives you every day? What do you feel your purpose is? Because I feel that's something that lacks these days, is having a purpose. And they may not be able to answer, and they may think that's a very weird question, in addition to how are your morning erections, which I ask. But these are this is the information that we need from them. So have these open conversations, because more often than not, they're going to be very happy that you asked. If someone asks how you're doing, and we usually say, yeah, we're good, but like, how are you really doing? That is the info you have to get to. It's no different than a consultation when you're trying to get to the why. Someone wants to lose 10 pounds, yeah, but why? Well, I have an event coming up, yeah, but why? Well, my ex-girlfriend's gonna be there. That's the motivating factor. And most clients' goals are going to be a little less fat, to move and feel better, have confidence, have more muscle. Not everyone wants to step on stage. Not everybody wants to be a power lifter, and we have to respect that. When I was younger, in my 20s, I treated every client as they wanted to step on stage. I was like, yeah, you got to eat 6 times a day, and if you miss after 3 hours, your muscles might fall off because, you've got to stay stoked with that metabolism, and now that we know that's like a myth, and you could eat once a day if you want. Obviously, it's not optimal, whatever. If you want to trigger the internet, by the way, just post anything on nutrition. Literally say anything. So if you follow me, which you do, you may have seen that I posted about deli turkey the other day, and I was talking to Alan about this. Who knew people would get so pissed off about deli turkey? Like literally. So I was talking about it. The context was actually, for me, that it's something quick. Like if you're here, Instacart some packets of deli turkey, and that's a great way to get protein in. Well, it's carcinogenic. It's got nitrates. It's got preservatives. It's processed. Bro, your whey protein's processed. And whoever's yelling at me saying this is like, a private account, no profile picture, sitting in their mom's basement, all that shit. That and diet soda. I talk about diet soda. I fucking love diet soda. Be real. Your clients want you to be real. I have energy drinks. I love nicotine. I love stimulants. I have Diet Coke. I love diet soda, all that stuff. I don't tell our clients, guys, you have to go buy grass-fed, grass-finished, grass-massaged, and kumbaya cows in order to be healthy, because that sets a barrier for them. And then they're like, well, I don't want to fucking work with this person. I've had clients literally say, guys are like, thank you for understanding the realities of life, because I have kids, I go to sports tournaments, I can't bring a Tupperware and find a microwave and all that stuff. Thank you for saying, yes, I can go get a Core Power at the gas station and that's okay. So that was a tangent that I went off on. But at Silverback Coaching, these are the pillars that we cover, and it encompasses everything in addition to fitness and nutrition. It includes hormone optimization. That is a huge, crucial piece to the data that is needed to understand how men operate. Obviously women too, but you guys know that this is a men's health talk. So strength training is one thing, cardio is another thing. Guys hate doing cardio, so we usually talk to them about the importance of aerobic training, and in my hands-on, I will take you through several cardio protocols and different work to rest ratios. But when men hear cardio, they think, oh, I'm going to melt, turn into a marathon runner, and my muscles are going to fall off. Similar to if you miss a meal after 3 hours. Not true. We know that it's very important for things like recovery, which is also part of one of our pillars. Personal development is a big one too, just like having those open conversations. There is lack of connection more now than there ever was. This is why men crave community in addition to women. That's why my event is something that guys just live all year for, because they're like, I get to be around other guys who are like me, and they're non-judgmental. There are so many men dealing with low testosterone and confused as hell regarding blood work, where to go, who's telling the truth, who do I listen to. It's very clear on the internet, because everything that I've talked about, I have 9 million trolls telling me that I am lying, that I'm not telling the truth, and I really don't care, because I am not lying, and I am telling the truth. Diet Coke is not that great. Pepsi, way better. So when we're coaching men, especially business guys, a lot of guys own a business, they're busy, they're probably CEOs, they're running some sort of team. Nowadays, the new flex as a CEO is to have abs. So if you've noticed that, a lot of these guys who are in these high-level positions look different. High-performing humans having that look when you walk into a room and you immediately command respect based off how your clothes fit and what you look like is something that you cannot buy. You can buy the watches, you can buy the cars, but if you take your shirt off and you're embarrassed because you have a 7, 8, 9-figure bank account with a 3-figure physique, that's not as much of a flex. The cars are cool. I'm a big car head. I love cars, but I love abs too. Abs are a flex because you cannot buy that. And people will argue, well, you can etch it, and whatever. Do you remember Jeff Bezos? That guy, that nerd who started Amazon? Hell of a nerd now, right? Do you see what he looks like now? He's on TRT. He looks a certain way. Who would you respect more, him or him? And obviously, I'm preaching to the choir because we're all promoting a certain look and something to feel. But when you look a certain way, there's a certain level of confidence that comes with that. And guys will tell me this. Professional athletes who are retired have said, Ali, they expect me to be a fat slob. I don't want to walk into a room with a full of business professionals and not feel confident in my body. Because that is now, it's the new flex. Even Mark Zuckerberg. Finally, he needs a tan, but homeboy's getting some abs. Elon Musk needs some help, but Ari Emanuel from the UFC, WWE, they may not have a 12-pack with veins on their abs, but they look a hell of a lot different than they used to. This is how the Cybertruck was invented. It's the one thing I get trolled on when I talk about this stuff. But look at Elon. Okay. There's always that one outlier. We're working on him. Even a spray tan would help, you know? Even Strauss Zelnick, he was a former chairman of CBS. He's in his 50s. We have clients in their 60s looking a certain way. Bob Iger from Disney. He looks put together. He can see his dick. His stomach doesn't hang over his pants. I think that's a flex. It's sad, but it's a flex. Grant Cardone. Do you guys know who he is? So funny story, Charlie and I were in Antigua in March, and we're at a stem cell clinic for one of his clients. So anybody who goes and gets stem cells stays at this one resort. There's one restaurant at the resort. And we're sitting at dinner, and literally between me and Ed is Grant Cardone, and I'm like, oh, that's Grant Cardone. That's really cool. I'm not going to be that person to go up to him. Maybe I should go up. You know that conversation when you see somebody that you like admire. So my social media team is also the same as Grant Cardone's. So I was like, well, we have something in common. I should go up to him. So I hemmed and hawed, and Charlie's like, just go talk to him. So he had his iPad, and he's eating, and I waited until he's done. He's paying the check, and I go up to him like, Mr. Cardone, hi. My name's Ali Gilbert. I work with Ryan McGinn as well at Viral Edits. And he's like, who's Ryan? I was like, you're fucking with me. I was like, really? I was like, Ryan, like your social media guy. And he's like, you must think I'm my twin brother. And I was like, you have a twin brother? Do you guys know he has a twin brother? Because like no one that I knew Grant Cardone had a twin brother. And I was like, cool. Yeah, not knowing if they get along or not, or if they hate each other. I'm like, oh, yeah, you must get that a lot. He's like, yeah. Then he was nice. He's like, why are you here? And blah, blah, blah. What do you do? But that was a really funny story because I told that on Instagram stories, and everyone's like, he has a twin brother? And you look it up. They're like identical. So from this far away, totally get it.
Really? He wasn't swerving you?
No. Because Gary is a little bit smaller than Grant. But if you Google it, they're there. So that's my story for the day. Now, testosterone. If you guys have gone to the doctor and gotten your testosterone levels checked and been told you're normal, that's pretty common nowadays. Even if you are not normal, it is normal. We don't want you to be normal. We want you to be optimal. So optimal is the new normal. Normal is the new suboptimal. You suck, basically. But so many people get told I was normal. This was normal. All my lab markers were normal. It's very common to be told that. The way low testosterone is diagnosed is called hypogonadism. So your gonads or your balls, they're not producing what we need. So testicular hypofunction, which is primary hypogonadism, usually occurs in guys who are older, where balls have just died. They're not going to play along anymore. Trauma to the testicles, if you've been kicked in the testicles, or if you've had a varicocele, which is a vein that constricts the testicles that does not allow for optimal testosterone to be produced, because it's produced in the testicles from a signal from your brain. Secondary hypogonadism is what most younger guys deal with, so probably most of our clients. And when I say younger, I say below 50. So dealing with stress, dealing with any type of chronic condition, if you're under-eating, overeating, overtraining, undertraining, high body fat, way too low body fat, those are all things that can contribute to low testosterone, where the signal from the brain down to the testicles is being disrupted for one of those stressful reasons. The analogy that I give to the fitness industry, if you guys picture yourself going for a PR in back squat, and you're coming out of the hole, and you're like shaking, your eyes are bulging, you might shit your pants, literally you're holding your breath, and then some chick walks by, is like, yo, Jordan, let's go. Like, to reverse gears and like pop a boner at that time, in that instant, is like, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you do it? Has anyone had a boner while squatting? Let's start there. Okay, Ed. So that's the same impact that stress has on your body. Because it's not like, oh shit, we're so stressed out, let's go procreate. No, it's like, hey, let's survive and not fall over and injure ourselves. So that's similar to what your body's going through when you're stressed out. So if you are physically stressed, mentally stressed, if anyone has dieted very hard, you have no sex drive. Like when guys say, I want to get jacked and shredded so I can pick up chicks, I'm like, cool, your dick won't work, but good luck. Or like they get jacked and they get more men coming up to them than they do women. Unless you're me, and then I'm like, yo, what's up? Yeah, I'm married, it's okay. So this is the scientific chart as to how testosterone is produced. So on primary hypogonadism, it is a problem with the testicles. And then secondary, something is disrupting the signal. So that's important because you see those numbers on lab markers via LH and FSH. So luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Usually you hear that talked about when women get lab work. You guys have it too. Just like you guys have estrogen and we have testosterone. So when you see LH and FSH really high, that means it's primary hypogonadism because your body is screaming to produce testosterone, and the testicles are like, yo, chill, I'm old, or something happened. If they're suppressed, it's secondary. Something else is causing it. That's why it's important to get a full lab panel when getting labs done. And most of the time when guys go to the doctor and get told from a GP or a primary that they have low T, it's from someone who looks like this. And they're going to tell you that you're going to die and that testosterone is going to kill you or some other unfortunate thing like explosive diarrhea. Your penis will not shrink, by the way. I was offered to see a micropenis the other day, by the way, on IG. I declined, just so you know. Very important piece of this lecture. And then many guys are handed an antidepressant because low T does align very highly with depression. So the feelings of brain fog or just overall lethargic attitude or anhedonic, kind of like meh, it's very much low T. Does not always have to do with, well, my dick still works, so must have good testosterone levels. You know how many times I've heard that? They're like, well, yeah, I could still like get it up. It doesn't matter. There's plenty of guys struggling with all the other hormonal issues. So men typically don't talk about it because they think it's just the sexual stuff that signifies low testosterone, but it actually can be a lot of the brain fog. Like if your clients are pushing their thoughts through Jell-O and they're having trouble getting out of bed, they can't perform at the gym, at home, at work, it can signify low T. I bring this to your attention just to understand the symptoms for when you have these conversations with your clients. So what actually is testosterone replacement therapy? The definition is replacing what you should already be biologically producing. That is it. The internet will tell you otherwise, and it will say that you're going on steroids, guys like this, and they'll be like, yeah, I could look like that if I did steroids. Yes, it's a steroid hormone. However, the dosage makes the poison. What bodybuilders do for testosterone is going to be way higher than what therapeutic dosage is. And therapeutic dosage does not automatically mean you're going to explode with muscles and be jacked. We have plenty of guys on Earth, on TRT, who do not look like they're on TRT. So when clients are like, no, I don't want to go on steroids, that's the conversation around that. It's not going on steroids. It's a steroid hormone that is bringing you to where you should already be at the age you are for what you're doing in the rest of your life. And this is typically the client that walks into the gym or that you're coaching online. This is what he is dealing with, where he's got low-carb diet, because that's what guys like to do. Lower protein, I don't know anybody who comes in with high enough protein. Their fat is astronomical. Like, as soon as they log it, they're like, oh my God, I didn't know I was eating so much fat. Their body fat's around 28 to 30%, but all men will say 15. Every single one. About 15%. Okay, so that's like 25. My gauge for looking at body fat, I don't care if you want to get DEXA in body, like knock yourself out. Can I see your abs? Highly, highly scientific eye test. Can you see your abs? That's when I know, all right, we're hanging around 15. If I can't see your abs, then we're upwards of in the 20s. His total T is 275, his free T is 6.8. He's probably on SSRIs because of that. He's insulin resistant, his motivation sucks. He's very passive, probably has some erectile dysfunction. How do you start that conversation? How do you feel? Why do you feel that way? What do you think is contributing to that? What are the stressors in your life right now? How is your relationship with your wife? You got to ask that question. I ask that, we do online coaching, but I ask that because I ask, is she supportive? Does she know you're on a call with me right now? Is she similar to you in lifestyle? Because nothing is worse than dealing with someone whose partner is opposed to eating healthy, to working out, or considering testosterone replacement. Because that will shut down a lot. Then you can start getting into, do you have any sexual dysfunction? That's not the first question, like, Jordan, how are you? How's your boner? That will come off weird. But it's something you have to talk about, because just like women having menstrual periods, guys having morning erections is a significant sign of health. Frequent erections is a good sign. That's what you want for health. When those decline, it's a problem. If they start to diminish, it's a problem. So it's a question that has to be asked. Some of the side effects of being fat and inflamed are very similar to low testosterone. And this is like a touchy subject now, like on Earth. I say Earth because it's global, but there is a problem when your body fat is too high. You're in an inflammatory environment. Body fat is the most inflammatory tissue there is. So right away, that's going to suppress your body's ability to produce testosterone and all these other things that we don't want. But if we just go on testosterone, it would be like driving a go-kart and throwing a Lamborghini engine in it. That's my Photoshop skills of the day. You don't want that. You don't want to be driving a go-kart, or it's like driving your car where the service light is on all the time. Women, we drive with the gas light on all the time. But the service light, that's a problem, because then that shit's going to break down at some point. So what do we have to address? You guys are not going to prescribe testosterone, neither am I, but we have to address the lifestyle stuff, because that has to be addressed no matter what, whether they go on TRT or not. They have to dial in their nutrition, their fitness, their sleep, their stress management, all the things that we talk about all the time that are like broken records, but we have to get that across, because there are a bunch of people that think if I just go in testosterone, then it's going to make everything look better, and I'm going to look better, and I'm going to be jacked and lean, and all my dreams will come true, and women will be running at me, throwing themselves. That's just not true. We have to address this. And that's where my GPP for TRT approach comes in. That literally is the most simplistic way for you guys to prepare your clients for the experience of TRT, or if they're already on and they need to bring their body fat levels down. This is how we're going to do it. This is the eye test chart. Highly scientific, where you can tell where somebody's body fat is. So I just ask on consults. And guys are like, do you want me to lift my shirt up? I'm like, sure, get naked, whatever you want. Can you see your abs? That's usually one of the best factors. And then from that point, we decide, are we going to actually build muscle or drop body fat first? More often than not, we need to drop body fat. Building muscle is a very, very slow process. So fat loss is super quick. Building muscle, slow, like ejaculation. You're like, why do you have that photo up there? I thought it was a funny comparison. I forget why I threw this slide in, but I thought it was funny because being in Florida, we have a lot of these kids in the gym now. And they're always talking about SARMs. And we're not going to talk about that today, but don't do SARMs. Drugs are bad. But you'll also get requests like this from guys, which was a legit verbatim quote from one of my clients. And I was like, what do you want me to do with that? That's like women, do you think women are nuts? This is what guys say, like, I want to be jacked but lean, but I need to be yoked but shredded, but like not too big but not too small. What? So the client who said that, this is what he looked like on the left coming to me, and I was like, what am I doing with this? So on the right, I was like, we gave you more V-taper, is that good? Like, does that reflect like what that weird quote was, But in the fitness industry, this is what we all deal with. Major, major body dysmorphia. This is funny shit. You guys could laugh, man. I got to wake you up. So for a typical fat loss plan, what is normal? What happens? How do we reach a calorie deficit? So when dealing with guys, usually they will feel skinny fat, and then they'll say, I have to build muscle. So they bulk, but they bulk in an excessive bulk because they do a dirty bulk. Eat too many calories, then they feel fat, so then they crash diet it off, go back to being skinny fat, and it's this vicious cycle of ending up with just as much muscle as they did before because they're very impatient. So that's kind of the life cycle of a lot of guys that we deal with. So obviously we know that we can achieve a calorie deficit by lowering calories, but also we can increase output and then bring calories up. which seems to be like a forgotten thing. So many guys that we've dealt with have come to us eating sub 2,000 calories, and then they're at like 1,400, and they're like, yeah, I feel like shit. Well, dude, that's like that's what I diet on. Like, that's way too low. And we know the story of those before and after photos. So like the original diagram on Google was a chick, so I drew this last night, actually. This is my stick figure art. But you guys remember The Biggest Loser? Like, pretty much most of them gained a lot of that weight back. I know somebody who hasn't gained that weight back, and he's dropped over 200 pounds. Look at this specimen. So with GPP for TRT, we start by looking at what body fat percentage a man is starting at, because if he is over 15, we're not going to want to build muscle. It is very hard to build muscle in an inflammatory environment. So we want to start by dropping body fat, but we're not going to crash diet it. We're going to do it a little bit slower, just enough, Goldilocks method. So usually that starts with things that guys don't like, which is aerobic work, because they think that their muscles are going to fall off. Because we have negative effects on both spectrums of when somebody's too lean and then somebody's too fat. So we kind of want to be more in the middle, trending towards 12%. 12 to 15% is like the happy place for men to live. And a lot of people will think, well, that's way too lean, and it's not. We've just been conditioned to think that certain looks are okay. When it comes to health, it's not. So you see similar detriments to both sides, but being high body fat is going to be very high inflammatory. So with the start of GPP for TRT, which stands for General Physical Prep for Testosterone, we have to get somebody healthy and resilient. We do that by hitting all these metrics. So if you have somebody who's willing to give you these metrics, cool. Some of the easiest things to get now are Bluetooth cuff blood pressure, resting heart rate. What's the easiest way to lower resting heart rate and blood pressure? Aerobic work. So explaining to guys that this is only going to take about 8 to 12 weeks, and then you don't have to do cardio if you don't want to, is very useful for them. So being more aerobically fit means what? More mitochondria, which we all learned in bio was the powerhouse of the cell. Having more mitochondria allows you to shove more food into those cells and then use them for good things to where your body's like, oh, I can eat a lot now. With more mitochondria, we can sleep better. We can recover in between sets. We can recover in between workouts. That is very useful when you want more work capacity and you want to do more volume and get more out of what you're doing in your training. So GPP is going to be what the client needs. And then as we transition out of that and go more toward the fun stuff like hypertrophy and strength, that's what the client wants. I made this chart to show how it outlines with the nutrition, because in the initial stages with dropping body fat, we go low carb, not because low carb is the best way to drop body fat, but you don't want to add a ton of glucose on somebody who has a lot of inflammation, not a lot of mitochondria, and is going to already be insulin resistant. So we get them lower carb, high protein, shove all the fat and carbs that they are eating into the cells, and then when they get leaner, we start to add carbs, which is like ass backwards from what we were all taught in the fitness industry. Why? Because they're more insulin sensitive, so they can tolerate more carbs. And that is why our clients are now eating 7,000 to 2,000 grams of carbs on their high days when they started at 50 to 75 before they drop body fat. This chart is a mess. I need to clean it up. So with setting the macros, we set protein, and I work in kilos, by the way. My coach is Australian, so he got me conditioned to using the metric system, which, Nick, I'm sure you use all the time now. It's way more accurate. So if you guys go by kilos, it'll also help the clients who hate getting on the scale because they won't do the math. So they'll be like, yeah, I'm like, 90 kilos. Cool, I don't know what that means, but yeah. Use it because it's very helpful and accurate when doing math. So we'll set protein very high, which is about 1 gram per pound or higher. We leverage that. Why? High thermic effect. It actually costs your body more energy to digest it, and you burn calories while eating food. It's pretty cool. Fat we set at 0.66 to 1.54 grams per kilo, and then carbs, where are they on the spectrum of body fat? Where are we starting them? That's where you'll dictate the carbs. And that can be, low carb can be 100, low carb can be 50. Notice I didn't say no carb. It can be no carb, but people who do keto think it's low carb and vice versa because everyone's confused. Why I leverage protein, like I said, the thermic effect is very high compared to carbs and fats. So it basically sets a calorie funnel for your clients. They're satiated, they're able to eat more, they don't feel like they're starving, they're less likely to binge. Probably not going to gain any body fat over eating protein. I don't know anybody who's gained body fat eating too much protein. But the internet will tell you your kidneys will fail. We know that's a myth. So our carb continuum is with higher body fat percentage, 20% plus. We'll do a cyclic keto, which is basically like 5 days, probably carbs from vegetables and green things, and then on the weekends they'll replete with carbohydrates. As they start to get leaner, then we start to increase carbs and get them high carb. Maybe they're carb cycling. The only time I would suggest a carb cycle if someone's actually consistent with logging their nutrition. Otherwise, it's a mess. So high carb tends to do very well with people who are very lean. So that's a great way to frame where if you're starting at 20% body fat or higher, just start low carb and then add aerobic work. And then as they transition and get leaner, carbs go up, food can go up, protein will always stay high. So where do we start? So GPP method, 20% or above, lower carbs, lots of aerobics. They will say carbs make them fat anyway, and this is because they're insulin resistant. So when you add carbs to somebody who doesn't have the ability to digest them, they will gain water weight, they will not feel good, they'll think they're a special snowflake who's carb intolerant. We've all heard that before. Cool. Like gluten intolerant is a thing, carb intolerant, not really a thing. We can rectify that. That is why type 2 diabetes is reversible. And then as we trend to getting leaner, higher carbs, you can sprinkle in intervals. Carbs make me lean. It's magic when you start adding it to leaner guys and they're burning through it and they're like, holy shit. I never in my mind would think I'd be eating 500 grams of carbs. Like, it's crazy. All right, now we get to the fun shit. So is TRT for me? This is what clients will be asking you because they've heard a number of things. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions out there surrounding testosterone replacement. So it's important you guys know. Just like male coaches talking to women about menstrual cycles and their hormones, it's very important to understand how to discuss it with a guy. There are many different delivery methods of testosterone out there because it's a natural hormone that you produce. So it's hard to patent. So how do they monetize it? They create nasal sprays, pellets, certain gels, troches, all that stuff. The only methods of delivery that I feel are optimal are creams and injections. Okay? You will be hearing about things like pellet therapy, or even androgel is still scripted in Canada. Cream and injection are the best way to go. Cream that is applied scrotally, ball sack. Clean one, shaven, manscaped, call it. Why? Because the skin there is 8 times more permeable than anywhere else on your body. So it has to be applied once or twice a day. You have to do it away from taking a shower. But it's great if you travel a lot or you just don't want to deal with needles. If you don't mind dealing with needles, testosterone is injected with insulin needles, which are very tiny, like this. Don't really feel it. Or if you live in Florida like I do, you can go to places like this, super shady. You walk in and they're like, what do you want, Winstrol, Anavar? You just write your name on a piece of paper, you get whatever you want. There are a lot of telehealth clinics out there. A lot of them will sell you the same shit or whatever you want. They're sketchy. They give out the same starter pack. It's like Oprah. You get testosterone and anastrozole and Ganadderall. You get it, you get it, you get it. It affects guys so differently that to be scripted the same thing as somebody else makes absolutely no sense. Testosterone you absolutely need. Anastrozole is an estrogen blocker. So when you take exogenous testosterone, it converts Two different ways. First way is into estrogen via an enzyme called aromatase. So they're aromatase inhibitors. Or it gets converted to 5-alpha reductase into DHT, or dihydrotestosterone, which is a more potent form of testosterone. So hair loss medications block 5-alpha because DHT is more potent in that department. I'm not a fan of hair loss meds, by the way. You don't want to block things. A big hot topic in the TRT space is blocking estrogen, because when estrogen is high on lab work, many physicians will freak out and think, well, you're going to have a stroke, it's going to be bad. Men need estrogen, just like women need testosterone. None of our clients are on any estrogen blockers. And their estrogen's 60, 70, 80, 100. They feel amazing. The way to think about this is when women go through menopause and they lose estrogen, what happens? They become insulin resistant. They're prone to osteoporosis, belly fat, hair loss, all those things. If you block estrogen or suppress it so low, your joints will ache, you can gain belly fat, you'll become insulin resistant. And I've seen bone DEXA scans of men who have been on estrogen blockers for years, and they're basically in osteoporosis in their 40s. Those are the detriments. I will stay far away from anybody who prescribes those. Merrick Health does not. They are a great telehealth clinic. My friend Ian back there, they're a sponsor in the hall. If you guys want a competent telehealth clinic to work with, I'll get into how that works with your coaching. But you have to be judicious with who you choose, because a lot of the times they're handing this out. Now, gonadorelin is something that they give in place of HCG. So HCG, which is the female pregnancy hormone, will be prescribed to maintain testosterone production in the testicles, or that's what they say. If you want to conceive, you can go on testosterone, and it does not mean all of a sudden you're going to become infertile. It can have a compromising effect, and that's why it's important to get a sperm test beforehand. But going on something like just enclomiphene or just HCG because you don't want to avoid that, or you want to avoid that, is also a detriment to men. I'm not a fan of Clomid and clomiphene or HCG monotherapy at all. I am only a fan of using HCG 4 to 6 months away from when a guy would want to conceive. HCG plus something called FSH. So you guys have FSH. They make it bioidentical as a hormone to take. 4 to 6 months, that's all you need, and then you put a bud in the oven, you're good. You don't have to maintain that year-round. It's not absolutely necessary. Anybody online who is saying you must take HCG with testosterone usually sells it and makes a profit off of it. So typically, most clinics will say, take this testosterone, get your blood work done, we'll adjust, you'll be dialed in, and then that's it. If only it worked that way, and it usually doesn't. Many guys who have had side effects or don't feel great after TRTs because they've had a very mismanaged protocol. They're injecting once a week or less. The VA tends to give shots once a month. You're better off not even going on testosterone if you're going to do once a month or once every 2 weeks. The best way to do it is 2 to 3 injections a week. That's the most common. If a guy's willing to inject every day, that's great. 2 to 3 times a week, because it naturally aligns with your stable release pattern endogenously. And I know Merrick Health prescribes that as well. And I have my own panel, because these are the amount of markers that you want to get done. You don't want to just go to LabCorp or Quest and be like, hey, I want my total T, because that's like doing one test off FMS, and then it's like, cool, there's like so much else that we need to know that we don't know. We need the most data. Just like with primary, secondary hypogonadism, how do I know which one? You have to get LH and FSH. It's important to get DHEA and pregnenolone because those are potent neurosteroid hormones that if a guy's deficient, he could feel like he has ADHD, he could feel depressed. All these things are important to know. You guys should know about this stuff too and learn about it so that you can talk your clients through this and eventually interpret labs so that everybody's on the same page. What I like about working with Merrick is that I have a relationship with all the practitioners there and the health coaches there so that I can say, hey, Ian, Jordan's going to be eating this, and we're going to be training like this, so it might reflect in his labs. Because what happens if you get labs done the day after you work out, usually liver enzymes are elevated. If you have a practitioner who doesn't understand that, they're going to say, oh my gosh, you might have cirrhosis, you need an ultrasound. Usually that and creatinine are elevated the day after training. Or if somebody works out the day of blood work, which I do not recommend, then things can be a little bit wild. So having a place that you trust to be able to get clients blood work so that it makes you look good as a coach, that they are operating optimally with their hormones, then their results in the gym catapult. They're able to be more compliant with their nutrition. It just brings everything together. And that's what we do at Silverback, where we can now bring everything together because we can identify the detriments to men going places that are treating them poorly, or if they're not getting the right blood work done, or if they're just feeling a certain way. That's where the missing piece and things that we can't legally do is very useful. And they have their own ranges. So their testosterone range is 600 to 1400. Whereas typically it's the lowest I've seen is like 180 something to like 600. Our dads and grandfathers lived at like 800 or 900. And now that's considered very high. But you'll often see labs like this where someone will get testosterone 213 and look, it says testosterone's normal. You don't want to be normal. You want to be optimal. You don't want to settle for this. But our clients don't know enough of what to resist when they're talking to physicians. Do not go to a GP or primary for blood work. You'll get your physical, you'll get your routine stuff, but they do not specialize in hormones, and that's okay. If we have a cold or if we need something else, that's what they're for. It's going to be out of pocket because that's how our system's set up. Or you'll see labs like this that are awesome, but practitioners might freak out at because everything's red. It's like the marker in grade school. Whenever the teacher would color it red, it'd be like, you got this wrong. These are fantastic, and these clients probably feel amazing. This is where our dads and grandfathers lived, and now it's flagged as high. And notice estradiol's at 51, estradiol's at 55. Our clients leave that alone. They let their freak flag fly with the E2, because men need that, because it helps their libido. It helps maintain their joint integrity. It helps maintain their ability to drop body fat. Estrogen is anti-inflammatory. That is why obese men produce a lot of estrogen, because there's a lot of aromatase hanging out in body fat tissue, converting testosterone to estrogen. So if they're not on TRT, they're going to have very low T and high estrogen because the body's making it to push against all this body fat that's being created because it's anti-inflammatory. That's why. It's not a bad thing. Another one, except this isn't somebody on enclomiphene. That's why his LH and FSH are so high. And this is why I don't like enclomiphene, because if we look at these labs, you would think this guy feels really good. But what enclomiphene does, it makes your labs look pretty, but it does not rectify symptoms. And it causes ocular side effects, so you can get floaters in your eyes. It can cause non-alcoholic fatty liver. HCG also won't increase LH and FSH as much, but it won't rectify the symptoms. If you need testosterone, that is probably the most logical thing. But they will prescribe younger guys enclomiphene or HCG because they're afraid to give them testosterone. But if we have a diabetic who needs insulin, we're not going to give them protein to be like, hey, make this really complicated way of making testosterone. That's why I don't like enclomiphene. And then with these labs, this is a client of mine where you see his hemoglobin A1C is 5, which is great. So many places will say, oh, 5.6 is fine too. At Merrick, no, we're like, no, it's got to be lower, 5.2 or lower. But his testosterone's great, his free T is great. DHEA needed a little help, so we like DHEA in the 300 to 400s, but according to reference range on LabCorp, it's normal. But if you look at his TSH, so a lot of places will only do TSH. We do TSH, T4, and T3. LabCorp puts T3 on another page. I have no idea why. But the normal reference range, you would look at TSH and say, okay, that's normal. So TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone, tells your thyroid to produce thyroid hormone, which is a very important hormone for metabolism, for feeling good, for helping with blood sugar, all those things. I like it to be at 2 or lower. This was a little bit, it was starting to creep up. So I was like, you know what, let's run some more labs and get thyroid antibodies, because that can indicate some sort of autoimmune issue. Maybe you guys have heard of Hashimoto's, stuff like that. So we ran thyroid antibodies, and then boom. He's like, I've never had these done. And his main complaint was he was exhausted. He had gut issues. So low thyroid or hypothyroid directly correlates with some gut problems. And he was like, I never imagined that I had Hashimoto's. This is blatant Hashimoto's. So we got him on thyroid medication. He's starting to feel a lot better, but he could think clearer. But he thought he just needed more and more testosterone. And his last practitioner, before we changed him to Merrick, upped his dose by 100 milligrams, thinking, well, that'll help, we'll just blast. And it doesn't. You got to look at everything as a package. So the most common questions with testosterone, because there are a lot of them, hair loss, one of them. I couldn't find a funnier meme, so I just found this one. Going on TRT does not mean you will lose your hair. If you have a genetic predisposition, it may accelerate it, but it's inevitable. So you're just fighting the inevitable. You don't want to jump on the hair loss meds. But it does not mean automatically you go on TRT, boom, you lose your hair. There's plenty of great shaved heads in this room. It's a great look. I wouldn't worry about it. But it does not mean that you're going to lose your hair. Different anabolics coupled with high levels of testosterone is another story. Do not confuse therapeutic testosterone with steroid abuse. Many guys are fearful that their balls will shrink. Guess what? It makes everything look bigger. And I talk about this with guys all the time. I actually recently posted a reel where, you know, there's few women, or really none that I know, that have like ball girl on their dating profile. I've never met anyone who's like, tea bags are like my favorite. There's guys out there, they're like, my wife loves them. Like, no, bro, you do. Like that, and like, yeah, big loads. I want bigger loads. I'm like, it's not your wife asking for bigger loads. It's you. So if your testicles shrink, which not every man does, most guys really don't mind. If you really mind, you can take HCG, and that will bring them back. But not all men do well on HCG. So you could try it, see how you feel. I'm telling you, we don't care. We don't care. It makes a lot of other things easier. You know what I'm saying? Heart attacks was a big one too. So a lot of the literature has been refuted about heart attacks and testosterone, where now it is helpful in reducing. Low T can be a very big risk factor for heart attacks. So having optimal testosterone levels helps mitigate those cardiovascular risks. Many guys will hear their cardiologist will scare them, all these things. Educate your guys on this. Pull up the literature. If you need help, shoot me a message. Prostate cancer is another one. There is no study showing that testosterone causes prostate cancer. This is the saturation model. When your testosterone is below 250, the prostate will enlarge up until 250. Beyond that, it stays the same. So when guys say it enlarges the prostate, yes, up until 250 nanograms, and then it stays the same. And there's now treatments being done for prostate cancer with testosterone. And they're finding that it's not a reason to avoid it. It's not a reason to chemically castrate men, which is deprive them of both testosterone and estrogen, so they feel horrific. There's actually urologists in my network who have men with active prostate cancer on TRT because it is not an issue and it does not accelerate or cause the cancer to grow. So I mentioned my event, the Silverback Summit in November. These are some of my speakers. Maybe you know some of them, like the shirtless guy. Mike O'Hearn, I love that man. Really nice guy. I'm going to be interviewing him and his wife, Mona. But basically, I created this event to bring together all my trusted network of TRT practitioners, nurse practitioners, business professionals, fitness professionals, nutrition professionals, my social media guy. We have a whole VIP day dedicated to coaches and practitioners who want to grow their business and learn men's health, where I bring in my social media guy who teaches you guys how to actually create videos that draw attention. Bruce Cardenas on the left in the hat, he was the CCO for Quest Nutrition. He's now with Legendary Foods. If you know me, I live on those cinnamon rolls because I'm a fake food queen. He will be speaking on networking, leveraging relationships. I've got Rick Collins, who is the world-renowned lawyer in PEDs and steroids, talking about the legalities and what you guys as coaches can talk about, not talk about when it comes to that and nutrition. Business coaches talking about differentiating yourself. I will talk through what I did at Silverback Coaching, what I did throughout the last 2 years to flip it into a 7-figure company. Jay Ferrugia, my coach Luke Lehman, basically all my trusted network of guys. It's one big party, but with men's health education. We have 2 socials planned. It's an absolute blast. So I would love for you guys to attend. It's 2 days in Phoenix. Our VIP day is November 14th. The event is the 15th and 16th. And you get $100 off our early bird, which ends in 8 days. So if you want to scan that code, or you can go to silverbacksummit.com. If you don't follow me on IG, please do. I'm almost at 50K. I just need like a couple hundred. And if you guys have seen this guy following me around with the camera today, he's with Generation Iron. They're making a documentary about me and my career and a queen of men's health. So don't be scared. He's very nice. His name's Evan. That should be out on Netflix and Amazon next year. And that's basically how I got to where I am and what I do, and talking about boners and all the things that we talked about today. But like I always say, nothing is TMI in my world. If you guys have questions, obviously we have the Q&A. Please don't be shy, but please don't hesitate to message me on Instagram, because I do have a lot of people who are very shy about certain sensitive topics. If you are interested in being able to offer blood work to your clients, talk to Ian at the Merrick Health table. I will be spending a lot of time there in between my talks today and also tomorrow. If you'd like to talk to me about how I utilize blood work into our coaching and how all of that works. Other than that, Chris, thank you for having me and letting me do my thing. I appreciate you guys for attending.